Well. You never know who's going to pop in here at Sactown Sports with Frankie Cardicelli out. And Frankie is still trying to work at the hospital. I mean, what are we doing here, Frank? And who walks in? Brendan Nunez walks in. But who else walks in? The one, the only, Chris Watkins.
Yes.
Chris Watkins.
That's right.
Oh,
That's right.
yes.
I was told that I would have 15 minutes on Sam Darnold.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. If you want to start there, you know what?
We can end there.
Okay. We will definitely.
Can I have a lemon?
Yeah.
What's going on with the lemons?
Yeah, somebody brought the lemons.
Thank you.
There's a lot of lemons in studio.
Yeah, and it smells great in here.
Does it?
What do
the
they
lemon
say?
to the left-hand side,
what do they say,
you know?
Kyle?
When life hands you lemons.
That's true.
Yeah,
and the lemon that I would like is one Obi topping. But we're gonna get into all that.
Yeah, why are you talking about Johnny Juzang on the show right now, bro?
Yeah.
These
Shout
are
out UCLA.
These are all the trade restrictions have been lifted. Okay, so the last 18 players, Johnny Juzang was on that list from Bobby Marks. Don't know if you've heard of him or not.
Yeah, I have.
So, and another name that was on this list was, of course, Malik Monk. Obviously, nobody wants to move Malik Monk, but just some of the names that came up: Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe, Patrick Williams on the Bulls, Obi Toppin, Scottie Pippen Jr., Haywood Highsmith, Max Christie, OG Anunoby, and Precious Achua. I actually don't know if I ever read that during the past segment, just because they're not moving OG.
Where is he now?
OG?
No, Precious Achua.
He's on the Knicks.
Oh, I didn't know he was still there.
Yeah, well, maybe that's why they're trying to move him. Emmanuel quickly. Josh Okogie, a name that I found interesting. So guys like that doesn't mean that they will be moved. Tyrese Maxey's on this list, but they can be moved, right? Just like Malik Monk as well. Guys, let's start here, kind of how I started the show off as well. What is your biggest takeaway from the win streak?
I'd probably say the defensive growth that they had during that streak. I mean, that and their clutch performance for the most part, but they had a 106.5 defense rating. That's third in the league during that stretch. Their offense was still good, about seventh, but defensively they just took it to another notch. I thought Keegan Murray getting fully healthy after dealing with that ankle for what seemed like about a month, that was definitely lingering. I feel like he's moving better now. And obviously Keon Ellis getting more run. There's those 2 games that Keegan Murray misses. De'Aaron Fox then misses 3 in a row. Malik Monk misses last night. That's 6 games where Keon Ellis got to start and play considerable minutes. And, he's the deflection king of this team, really. He just constantly is doing that out there, still hitting his threes. I think Devin Carter playing a little bit more has played into that. And everybody just playing their role a little bit for the most part. But I think that it's been the defensive growth that they showed during that stretch that is probably most encouraging. And then didn't really show up in Milwaukee, but Giannis is a different beast to deal with.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is the overall camaraderie for sure. And just, I guess it could have been a negative, but the fact that they didn't just like completely collapse, right? It's like, I mean, you let go of Mike Brown. There's like underlying tension of whose fault is this? And, guys are picking sides and things like that. I think there was a real chance for during this streak, like we saw them lose to the Lakers game 1. Things could have just like completely crumbled this entire season throughout this stretch. And the fact that they did like kind of use it as an opportunity to come together and, really, have a time to look at themselves in the mirror and decide what kind of team they wanted to be. Ultimately, I think it's a pretty good sign of resilience. They've gotten themselves out of the hole. Now they're kind of back at ground level. I think that's the next thing that we want to see is now that they're kind of got their head above water, like, where are you going to go? Are you going to drown yourself back down again? Or are you going to kind of keep fighting? Or is this, are you going to continue to rise? I think the fact that this team is still a team, honestly, is probably the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, and I feel the same way just as far as the expectations, because with the Sacramento Kings, we've always kind of understood that when they needed to have urgency or when their backs were actually against the wall, whether it's in an actual game or just the season in general, they do tend to show up more.
They would play different, right?
They would play
I don't
different.
know if they would win, but they would, all of a
at
sudden
least give a better effort.
For sure.
Now that they're in a position to where, okay, we're right where everybody kind of thought that we would be, and now things are starting in January. We're past Christmas. Now it's time to go. Will they be able to generate that same urgency? That's not something that we've seen from the Kings the last couple years. That's what I'm waiting to see. All of the motivational talking from Doug Christie. It's all been great. Now that you lost the game, what happens next?
Yeah, I think it's where they're going to even out to, because they're coming off this high of this win streak and everything was rolling. That was right on the back of a 6-game losing streak. I feel like we've been saying for a while that one win streak can change everything here. And the fact that you lost 6 straight right before that just meant you kind of just evened it out. You're back to 20-20, right? 500. But I think the clutch scoring has been a big difference. They were 6-13 in clutch games before this winning streak. They go 4-0 during that. You know, it's the style of how they won these games. Even that double overtime against Miami, obviously pulling that one out. I think the first front to back win where they weren't losing for a single minute against Golden State on the road was an impressive one, you know, but where are they going to even out to here? Because shots are starting to fall a little bit more. You're getting fully healthy for the first time all season long. Now you have little nagging things here and there, obviously. But I think it's where you're going to be even out to, because the production they were on and that trajectory was unsustainable to an extent, but you're not going to be the first defense, the third defense, but where are you going to fall as this all sort of starts to, you know, fall into place here as the season goes on?
Has your expectation changed for the Sacramento Kings? Kyle and I were kind of talking about this, because in one breath I say, you know what, right where they're at and the momentum that they have, I see no reason why they can't be a 5 or a 6 seed. Then I looked back at the standings and saw, well, they don't have the tiebreaker for really any of the 3 teams in front of them. They are, again, dealing with, as much as we love Doug Christie's still getting his sea legs under him as a coach. What exactly should the expectations be for the Sacramento Kings? Should it be do you expect them to be out of the play-in, or is your expectation that they'll be a high play-in team, maybe even higher than last season?
I think it's sitting on the fence, but I do think it's true that they really are on the cusp of the play-in, in my opinion. Like, I think that they, with how they're playing right now, I think the expectation should have changed. I think, you know, as they are different places in the standings and different possibilities become reality, I think you have to adjust your expectations. And yeah, I think before this winning streak, you probably should have expected them at best to be in a 10 or a 9 seed. Now that they're, again, back above water here, or at least treading water, I think it's okay to expect them to be at least partially the same expectations that we had at the start of the season. Can you escape the play-in? I think that's ultimately where, if you were to ask the team right now, that's probably where their mentality is at, is first and foremost, get out of this play-in situation, get a top 6 seed. I think there's a chance they can still, you know, much exceed that. I think, you know, they haven't made a trade yet. They still haven't done that big swing. I think that's the move that this team will finally start to feel like more of a completed puzzle. But until that happens, I mean, yeah, I think the expectation should be 6 seed at best, frankly. Like, if you do anything better than that, I think that's 100% exceeding the expectations at this point.
I think the run convinced me to not change off my expectations that I had at the very beginning of the year. Because when they were losing that 6 straight and kind of trending downhill, you know, 13-19 at that time, I started to be like, I don't know, man, maybe this team is not even like they're going to fight to make it into the play-in. Are they even going to get out of that? And this run obviously evens things back out. And I think I'm back to where I was at the beginning of the year, that they're going to have a puncher's chance in the first round. But first, you got to worry about getting out of the play-in. I think they have a chance to slide up to, you know, all things considered, there's no reason that you couldn't get up to like 4.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, it's crazy in the West, and it's highly competitive. I think if you get into this first round and say, I mean, really, you want to avoid the OKC Thunder,
which is so funny
100%,
because
100%.
they were the team that last season everybody said, "Oh, you
welcome.
want to see OKC."
Right. Well, and funnily enough, I feel like the Kings actually played pretty well against OKC this year. Wasn't a great example in their one showing, but after that, man, if you play the Rockets that are pretty inexperienced, the Grizzlies have something there, and obviously I worry about Denver a little bit. But point being, you get into that first round, and I think the team's good enough that you like to think anything could happen. And that was my expectation beginning of the year, and I think that's back to believable now.
How much time have either you? When you win 7 of 8 and the one you lose is the last game on a road trip, are we doing anything with the Bucks game, or is that just a combination of bad matchup, last game on a road trip. They had won 7 straight. They were kind of due. The Bucks were also hungry. You're not sneaking up on anybody. Are there any legit takeaways to take away from last night? Because I feel like we're all just kind of on cloud 9 that it's just one of those losses that, hey, they just won 7 in a row. I don't really care. So I honestly haven't spent much time thinking about the loss, but I'm wondering, is it just a combination of those things, or is there anything that you spent time thinking about last night?
For me, at least, it was definitely a confirmation of, this. We were not sprinkled with fairy dust or something. Like, things are real. Like, we did not have some magic elixir that fixed everything. Like, there's still very real problems with this team. And one of the problems is a problem for a lot of people, but really, you can use Giannis as the mascot for it, but they don't have anyone who can guard Giannis. And yes, of course, he's an MVP. Nobody has people to guard Giannis, but they don't have somebody to put on Kevin Durant. They don't have somebody to put on Giannis, LeBron James. The list goes on and on of all these excellent forwards that the Kings do not have any answer for, and we know that that's the weak spot of this team. So to me, it really just highlights when Domantas Sabonis is out here struggling for his life to get 16, 10, and 10, like, they need more big bodies in teams like the Bucks. Granted, that's a very specific matchup, and they didn't even have Chris Middleton yesterday, who adds to that. But the Kings need size, and I think that really was highlighted last night, that it wasn't possible for them to win that game because they couldn't match Giannis and Brook Lopez's size.
Real quick, is that specific to forward size, like you said? We've had this conversation plenty of times. The people, just to address the Valanciunas people. Do you think
they're
that's
still around? Huh?
Oh, they're around.
That's crazy. All this time.
Do you think that there is a center conversation to be had, or are you strictly focused on forwards?
Well, it's just backup center. It doesn't matter, right? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, I think it does, but you don't want to spend a lot on it.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
The offense, they're easy to find, so it should make it cheap to acquire
100%.
as well, is the idea. And Valanciunas is on the upper end. I think it makes sense. I mean, they went to Alex Len because they needed size. Like, I think there's a way that Valanciunas helps in that game. Yeah. Maybe instead of the Trey Lyles back up 5 minutes, which is where the Kings really got killed in that first quarter, you're going to Valanciunas, you know? But
it's a regular season acquisition.
Yes.
Like, Sabonis is playing 40 minutes in the postseason.
Right, exactly. And their offense is pretty bad without Domas on the floor usually right now, but sure, like, Valanciunas helps, but he doesn't help the defensive aspect that you're talking about. You know, you do need more forward wing size, because Keegan Murray's a really good defender. I think he's a little better on guards than he is on these physical wings forwards, and they put Domas on Giannis for a lot of the game last night as well, but you can't just ask Keegan Murray to be your plug and play on literally anybody out there. Like, first off, give him a little less responsibility there night to night. And they're kind of doing that because they have no other options.
Right.
And so you need some more of those, a la some wings and forwards.
Yeah, I would say acquiring a good backup center is not worth it.
Sure. And that's the
other needs. You have other bigger needs.
That's a conversation that we've been having. Yeah. But because everybody likes to talk about it, I do really wish that we saw Keegan on Aaron Gordon, that game that he missed when the Kings still almost beat the Nuggets, because that's a good barometer to see, okay, what can obviously Aaron Gordon's a bit bigger, but he ain't Giannis, right? So where does Keegan fall in games like that? Another thing I'll take away, and this is kind of from what you said, Chris, with the fairy dust thing, is that I've been talking about who are guys that you just can't, I call them untalkaboutable. Right, so you can't talk about Malik Monk.
Is that more than untouchable? Less than untouchable?
I think it might be more than untouchable.
Okay.
Is it?
Yeah, like you can't even
talk about them. Okay. And Malik Monk is number one, has been number one on my list. Just
untalkaboutable.
Untalkaboutable.
We're just going to talk about the untalkaboutable people.
Actually, but I'm not talking about it. But I'm not talking about.
Okay.
I'm not talking about Malik.
We're talking about not talking.
That's
Got
right.
It.
The guy I'm gonna. The guy I'm gonna talk about, who a lot of people don't talk about, is Keon Ellis, and Keon Ellis is still growing. And Mike Brown used to talk about this, Keon Ellis, because he is giving the Kings more than any of us expected. Keon Ellis has kind of moved into that everything Keon does, has that pixie dust on it. And we saw last night, he's still young in this game and he can still get got. Dame did not have too much trouble on Ellis Island last night, and neither with Devin Carter. So, something last week was, do the Kings have the best guard rotation? Y'all got to stop being disrespectful, because the Kings haven't done, or defensive rotation. They haven't done anything yet. And last night,
the best defensive guard rotation.
That's what this is during the win streak.
Whoa,
that's what somebody was
Boston
about.
Drew Holiday.
That's what I'm saying.
Whoa.
That's what I'm saying.
Whoa.
And last night, you see Stinson. Keon did a great job offensively making up for Malik Monk, but there are certain stints where you see, okay, so you don't have a stopper for the 4, and your guard stopper is in his second year in the league as a two-way, formerly a two-way player or a rookie. And I guess that's the other thing with De'Aaron. We keep running around calling De'Aaron a two-way player. At what point is he going to guard the other guy?
I mean, I think if Keon's out there, you might as well have Keon do it.
I'm just saying, if Keon getting cooked, and there were times last season where De'Aaron said, "Hey, I got him."
Yeah.
I guess I'm just saying we're starting to see not cracks in the armor, but just what Chris was saying, the pixie dust. You don't have anybody to guard the 4 besides Keegan, and your guard rotation is still pretty young.
Yeah, they definitely are. I mean, you need more. It's the same thing that we've known. You have an imbalance here. Kevin Huerter is getting his minutes really cut throughout this whole process, and I think naturally somebody is going to sort of get the short end of the stick in all of this, and it makes sense. And that's part of the reason, like we mentioned earlier, that their defense has been so good throughout this run. But you need more size with it. You need more length. You need athleticism, ideally. And I think that they could really benefit from getting that. They're trending in the right direction right now. That as cliche as it is, I think the energy with a group matters, and just how they're feeling and their spirits, their confidence is really the main aspect of that. And when you look around, like already thinking you got a good group, and then you acquire another guy, that can inflate some things sometimes. And so I think there's a lot of aspects that just point to the obvious, that they need to make a move. And we've seen a bunch of reportings that they plan on making, like they're not plan on, but doing everything they can. And
everybody's
sure,
doing everything.
We've heard it before,
can.
But it feels very much so the case this time, because I think if they don't make a move right now, it's hard to see how this front office makes it through this offseason.
Wow. And with that, what move will it be? We'll talk about it on the other side. Chris Watkins, Brandon Nunez, Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports. Speaking of Kendrick, Drake dropped a lawsuit. You guys see that?
I did not.
No.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, no, he really did.
The one against Spotify?
Yeah, and UMG, he dropped the lawsuit.
Oh, like officially?
Yeah, it came out yesterday, but I don't know. It's very confusing.
Damn, that's lame.
It's pretty stupid.
Drake SoCal when Not Like Us came out, and it was everywhere.
Yeah.
It was everywhere.
He's claiming that
those streams might be real.
Yes. So
the Spotify inflating ratings thing?
But I think because it's very confusing, but yeah.
He's essentially saying like the algorithm pumped that song to you regardless of whether you had, like, you could have been listening to Sabrina Carpenter and then the next song would have been Not Like
And
Us.
Dave did
which is crazy
yes.
because Drake has been accused of that like 5
Well, they
times.
all do it.
Yeah.
They all do it, but I guess this one was really bad. But yeah, it's something, and somehow Drake fans are still somehow Drake fans are still victory lapping, but Kyle played Kendrick, so it made me think
Watkins
of it.
hit the point, which is like, yeah, that definitely did happen. It happened to me, but at the same time, that also happens to Drake. Like, that's the game, dude. That's the game.
There you go. Well, what is the game? Wins and losses. And the Kings saw their win streak lose. It was or end. It was the biggest or longest winning streak in the NBA, guys, and it is over now, and it is time for us to look forward. And Brendan, you dropped some gems before the break as far as you don't think that the front office will still be hanging around if they don't make a move, unless they go to the second round or something.
I just think it would be a question. I think that we're already at the point where, I just wonder what their future is going to hold. There is a lot of pressure on this team to make steps in the right direction, obviously, with De'Aaron Fox. And if he decides that he wants out this offseason, then the question becomes from, ownership's perspective, or is this the front office that I trust to trade De'Aaron Fox?
Yeah.
And we don't know what that question is going to hold. So I think that, there's just plenty of reasons that we've seen with that change. Mike Brown, the head coach, is always kind of the first one to go, obviously, and you could see things trickle down. So things are trending well right now. I just think that things can change very quickly is all. And there's a lot of pressure on this front office to do something. And there's been multiple reports that they plan on doing something.
I'm running out of time here. You're running out of time here.
I mean, you have a while. February 6th.
Okay, well, there's going to be the big rush, we know, on during the trade deadline, but I'm still trying to figure out how they view this roster. And, guys, I'm going to be completely honest with you. As far as the Keegan Murray thing, and I'm not trying to compare players, I was watching some Trey Murphy highlights. And when you talk about a leap, I do wonder when you're making these tough decisions, how Monty and the rest of the front office and ownership is viewing who is touchable and untouchable. I mean, during the win streak, guys, it was only Kevin Huerter. Nobody wanted to move anybody else but Kevin Huerter. You couldn't move Devin Carter, couldn't move Keon, couldn't move anybody. Now that the Kings have lost and we're coming a little bit back to reality, do you think there is actually an untouchable list, or is it depends on what we're trying to get back?
Okay, for the sake of conversation, there's an untouchable list, but nobody is untouchable, right?
Okay.
So the guys that would only be talk aboutable if you were really talking to me, you know what I'm saying?
I like that a lot.
De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis.
Talk to me nice.
DeMar DeRozan.
Okay.
And Keegan Murray. And Malik Monk.
Why don't you just keep going, Brendan?
That's it, right? No, I mean, you have a core of this team.
Yes.
Like,
and then, yes,
you'd have to really be talking to me. It'd be about some name that we have not been mentioning.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, they're not on the table at all.
Okay.
Should I shorten that into two separate
You don't
categories?
have to. You don't have to.
I think you could tier it.
Yeah, I think
you could
Chris.
tier
I
it.
think you can tier it.
Chris, please
I
tier
think
it for me.
Sabonis is in a tier by himself. I really do. I think De'Aaron Fox is a lot
Currently,
more touchable.
probably.
I think De'Aaron Fox is a lot more touchable than Domantas Sabonis. I can't imagine a universe where Domantas Sabonis is traded this season. I could see a universe where De'Aaron is traded this season.
Sure.
I think that's fair.
I'm not 100% sold DeRozan's not tradable. I won't say they will trade him or they will look to trade him, but I think he is tradable. I think Keegan has become more tradable. I don't think that they are actively shopping him.
Yeah,
And Malik, I think Malik probably fits most towards the Sabonis end than anybody
That's
else.
where I'm at.
I think that they're looking to trade Kevin Huerter.
Yes, and
Trey
that's
Lyles,
what they've been.
But that's who they
They've
want
been.
to trade.
want to
And
trade,
the other
unless
guys
somebody
that they
comes to them,
probably
yeah.
could be talked into trading since they're not trying to make some crazy splash move.
Yeah.
Are like Devin Carter, Keon Ellis is probably on the fringe of that. Just because he would be a big asset, like you have to pay something to get something.
Who's more untouchable?
Devin or
Yes.
Devin. You have like 7 years of team control. You have 2 left for Keon. It's easy. It's easy. I like Keon a lot. I love Keon.
I don't know if I agree with you on that one.
That's fine.
Chris, where are you at on that?
If Brendan likes Keon or how tradable Keon is.
Devin or Keon?
Devin or Keon.
Who's more untouchable?
Who is more untouchable? Devin, I would say.
Yeah, who do you think has more value to other teams?
Keon, for sure.
No way.
I would say Keon just because his contract. Well, okay.
Well, it depends what
I don't
team.
know. I mean, it depends how. Yeah. I mean, it also. I think this 7-game streak has changed a lot. Like I
agree with that.
I just don't know where it stands because of the 7-game streak. But I think Devin Carter, as a token or whatever, like I think he definitely like that pick, the
cachet,
the promise, all of that
the
makes the most
thing
sense.
you're sending out.
100%. I think Keon is a very, 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 very good sweetener. Like a sweetener that is only for a deal that like, okay, the Kings like really had to get this done.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out who can get moved.
I don't think they're just trying to blow everything up though.
No, I don't think they're trying to blow everything up, but I don't know if there is a world if these guys don't get to the second round, like Sam Amick said last week. I don't know that there is a world where you make a fringe move. If you make a fringe move, I don't know.
I was talking about this season till the trade deadline. I think come the offseason, like again, I think it's all opened up again.
I agree, but they keep talking about, or Sam Amick last week said that he thinks that the Kings need to get to the second round or conference finals to keep De'Aaron happy. So the way I'm looking at this is I don't know if there is a fringe move that's going to be made with just Trey Lyles and Kevin Huerter, unless you're adding draft capital, which we know people don't want to move draft capital. I don't know if there is a Trey Lyles, a Honda Civic package with Trey Lyles and Kevin Huerter, because Toyota Corolla package is gone. It's a Honda Civic package. I don't know if there is a trade like that that's going to help the team enough to keep De'Aaron. So in my mind, and this could be completely wrong, it feels like if they don't take a big swing, they're kind of saying they're okay with taking that chance that you lose De'Aaron.
I think when they fired Mike Brown, they kind of already did that. De'Aaron's made it clear that was kind of a guy that he really liked to have around. And so that's fine. I think we've seen teams retool when trading away their stars. There's teams that got a whole lot for some of these deals. Look at the Donovan Mitchell trade, and kind of Utah is obviously resetting now, but think of Paul George from OKC, and obviously they had to go through a reset time as well. But I think that there's decent things that you can get, and you'd still have Domantas Sabonis, you still have DeMar DeRozan, you have other guards that can kind of step up in De'Aaron's place and see if you get a Reed Shepherd, and it's like, I know how people don't love Reed Shepherd.
Went crazy in the G League.
Yeah, of course. I mean, as he should.
He did.
As he should.
So did Kobe Jones.
This guy was just
He's
third pick? Third pick.
So did Kobe Jones.
But if you get
And
an
Cam
interesting piece from someone, and Anthony Black from Orlando, that can kind of fill into that spot, I think that it's already, in my mind, it's a lot would have to happen for De'Aaron to stick around at this point.
Wow. Brendan, relax. No. You
Why
said
is this
Monty. No.
crazy?
You said Monty. If he doesn't make a move, you got to
Is this
go.
surprising, though? I feel like we've been saying this.
Maybe, you know what? Maybe it's a bit prisoner of the moment because of the 7-game win streak. And I do think Sam Amick did bring things back to reality when he spoke. What was this? I think it was on Monday or late last week. So
it's kind of Rich Paul. Like the whole meeting was, what direction are we going in?
Yep.
And translating that without trying to put words in somebody's mouth, it's, hey, are we going to get better? And so far, they've done nothing.
And then a week later, they fired their coach.
Yeah, they've done nothing but fire their head coach. I'm just connecting the dots here. I'm not reporting.
No, hey, I mean, source or not source.
Yeah,
All right, we got to get the Dame. We got to give Brendan the Dame Lillard so we can get to the other side. Chris Watkins, Brendan Nunez on the other side. In that world, where does Malik Monk fit? Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports. Brendan Nunez, Chris Watkins, join us here. We are, halfway through. Third hour of the show. And, I don't know what Brendan, it's a Wasabi Wednesday here because Brendan trying to get these dudes out the paint. Monty McNair and De'Aaron Fox. I know. No. I'm just kidding. But something needs to be done. And as much as I've been saying this 7-game win streak was great, we all agree on that. Then you look at the standings and you think, okay, there's still plenty of work to be done. We're going to go over the schedule and what the guys are thinking about the schedule. But real quick, I did want to address this because we knew it was going to come up once you saw what the Kings did when De'Aaron didn't play. Obviously, what has happened as far as De'Aaron saying, hey, we need to make this team, good enough to compete at a high level and make deep playoff runs. Then De'Aaron misses some games and Malik Monk does the Malik Monk thing. So I guess here's a question, guys. And I didn't really give it much play because I do think De'Aaron Fox, he's always on everyone's underrated list. But when we have these conversations about if they were to move De'Aaron Fox, is there a reason we never really discuss Malik Monk kind of sliding in? Are we being a little bit disrespectful to what Malik Monk's ceiling could be, or do we think we're seeing Malik Monk prime right now? Is there a world where Malik Monk does kind of take this mantle? And I'm not saying he'd be as good as De'Aaron, but is there a world where Malik can get maybe closer than people like me are giving him credit for?
I think there's a world. He's still pretty young, and I think the difference right now is consistency, really. There's still a lot of turnovers from Malik and moments where maybe he's kind of forcing things. When you hear about guys attacking the rim and needing to make spray threes instead of forcing up tough shots, I feel like Malik is guilty of that. Obviously, De'Aaron does some of the same, but he's just elite around the rim. There's something there for sure, and I think it's part of the reason that if you do move on from De'Aaron eventually, that you feel like you can still remain whatever definition of competitive that you want to use, but where they're currently floating about, I would say. So sure, there's a world, but I think that you're starting to see him continue to progress. And I think that we're just sort of getting the beginning of what his prime will be, and he will still continue to get better. But the big difference between, I think, the star players and the really good role players is just how consistently can you do it. And I don't think Malik has proven quite yet that he can consistently be that guy on, 60 of the 82 games a year at least.
Yeah.
I think very well said. I mean, I think that's really the point, is that it's about consistency and expectations. Like, De'Aaron is expected every single night to score at least 20 points. And if he doesn't, then it's a really bad night and people are going to talk about it. Malik doesn't have that level of expectation. Like, he's been a 20-point per game scorer really since he entered that starting lineup, but it's a different kind of pressure when you're not what is he right now? Maybe the third offensive option, when more so from the other side of things, when teams are thinking, how are we going to slow down the Sacramento Kings tonight? Sure, Malik is towards the top of that list, but number 1 or number 2 on that list is De'Aaron Fox. And that's just a different level of attention that's required. And I would say as a broad scope to answer your question, yeah, I think that we definitely could be underselling Malik. I think there's a chance we saw it with De'Aaron out. Like, maybe you not as a bad to De'Aaron Fox, but maybe you wouldn't miss De'Aaron as much as what you might think if he were to get hurt or get moved or whatever, because Malik is able to step up in that role. But I just don't know. I mean, it again, like, it could happen. Guys progress at different rates. I mean, Malik, you could argue, was the better prospect, I would say, in college than De'Aaron was. Like, Malik was the guy on that Kentucky team. I say that to say maybe, Malik was the early developer and then kind of had a little lull where De'Aaron passed him, and maybe Malik can pass him again. But I just feel like from everything we've seen with basketball throughout the years, not saying it can't happen. Jeremy Lin obviously had a wild, and that's the extreme end of it. But I just kind of feel like, you kind of have a natural progression, and the progression that we've seen from Malik just hasn't been one that says, oh, he might really, really pop down the line. And I just don't know how many guys in the league are really even like that.
Yeah, because what is it? He's got to be 27.
It's the same age as De'Aaron.
Yeah, he's 26 or 27. So I do think it's just an interesting thought. And I was trying to put Malik on a different team to see how we would view that team. And it led me down this path. Guys, this is insane. I don't know what the Rockets were on, and I know he's a champion, but paying Fred VanVleet $42 million is malpractice.
Well, but they just were in a spot in their sort of development where they have a bunch of young guys on rookie deals, and it's not like, it's not like you look at their team and it's like, well, they could have used it on X, Y, or Z.
Because I'm just thinking,
and now it's a
can't
trade.
Have Jalen Green run point guard. No one else will see the ball.
They did literally have to, because you have to hit a 90% salary floor, or otherwise you have to pay the money anyways. It just goes to other teams.
Because I don't know how much people are going to want the contract
just
back,
why they got Steve
but
Adams.
It is a tradable asset as well if you're trying to get a star.
Sure, and he's on a club option. He has a club option next season. I guess my point is, I'm looking at a team like the Rockets who seem to be missing that dude, and I'm thinking in my head, would the Rockets be viewed any differently if you removed Fred VanVleet and you put Malik Monk in there? Obviously, we watch Malik Monk a lot, but I kind of feel like they'd still be looking for a dude per se, but they might get a little noisy in the playoffs with somebody like Malik. I mean, he's a big shot maker and a big shot taker.
They get a little better. Yeah, they get a little better, but they're probably about the same caliber player.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Fred VanVleet. I think Fred's a little bit better, a little bit more consistent, and has done it at a higher. Like, Malik, still, bless him, like, he's done great, but we're still talking regular season success here.
Yeah.
Fred VanVleet has played in
fourth quarter of
NBA
Game 6
championship.
of the
Come on
NBA
now.
Finals.
Come on now, you watch that game?
Missed it. That was a long time. And first of all, he did that, and that changed his whole career. That's the last time I heard about Fred VanVleet.
That's the reverse Sam Darnold right there. That's what we like to call that.
That's the last time I heard about Fred VanVleet.
He made the All-Star team
I'm just saying, he's 30. He's 30 years old. Give me Malik Monk the next 5 years over Mr. VanVleet. All right, last but not least, Brendan, when it comes to what you've seen from Devin Carter so far, and again, we had some fun with the Untouchable conversation. Devin Carter, we tried to grade him on the first couple games that he had, but what have you seen from Devin Carter? Is this about what you thought you'd see from Devin Carter?
Yeah, I would say so. A lot of, The rebounding I think is really fun for him to be 6'2", 6'8" wingspan with 42-inch vertical, which matches Malik Monk's at the combine, by the way. And you see just one arm kind of sky up there competing for boards. Just to have the mindset to do that, I think you see the same thing. A guy that does that on the glass also does that for 50-50 balls. And I think you've kind of seen that. He's taken on tough challenges, a little bit of Dame Lillard. He's seen Steph Curry throughout this stretch. So I think that he's done most of what you would want. I thought that 8-0 run, or that 8-point run he had by himself at the beginning of the fourth quarter in Boston, was really big for that game, to keep it close and keep the momentum going, to keep your distance from Boston and keep the momentum going in Sacramento's favor. I thought that was big. So some typical rookie moments for sure, but I think that it's been encouraging so far, and encouraging enough that he's playing over Kevin Huerter. And I think that that's kind of been the right decision.
Yeah, there are definitely some moments where I think offensively, I still have questions, but as his current role is just kind of a 3-and-D guy, and if you're another team going up against the Kings, you're gonna give him the jump shots. I mean, he makes 2-3 in a row, then maybe you'll choose to close out on him. But in a lot of, not with that random lineup we saw yesterday, but in most lineups, he will be the poison that you pick. So I don't know what is going on in here. Everybody,
that was interesting timing.
Is sneezing. We got one more
lemons.
We got one more segment. We are going to look ahead for the Sacramento Kings and what do we expect from them in the next 5 games. One more segment. Chris Watkins, Brendan Nunez, taking you up to 2 p.m. And all things Sacramento Kings, guys. We look ahead to we still do the next five game thing, even though that was more of a Mike Brown thing. You get the Rockets, who the Rockets are going to be coming on the second half of a back-to-back. Then you host the Wizards, which that goes without being said. The Warriors, who they're dealing with a lot of drama right now, mainstream media. But then the next 2, you have to go to Denver, who's been playing really well. And then you have to go to New York. And historically, I can't wait to see how Doug Christie handles the Knicks, because we know that last season, the Knicks just got to do whatever they wanted. Keon Ellis struggled against Jalen Brunson, just the physicality of the Knicks. They actually had a decent run, the Kings did, towards the end of the season, but that was when Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter were both out. How are you viewing the next 5 games as we get closer and closer? So let's see here. They have those 5, 6, 7. So they have 10 games before the trade deadline, which is a nice, even number. But these next 5, it just gets harder after that. They got to go to OKC. They got to go to Minnesota. How are you looking at these next 5 games and what you expect to see from the Sacramento Kings?
I think this first Houston one back home is a big one. A lot of times teams will maybe come off to slow starts first game back home after a little bit of a road trip. But I think the Kings have every reason to sort of be inspired right now and confident in their play, even despite that loss to Milwaukee, obviously coming off 7 straight right before that. Houston's a team they beat at home earlier in the year. It's one of their best wins of the season so far, I thought, especially prior to this streak that they're coming off of. So they're going to be hungry to try to take care of business. And it's a team that kind of tries to punk you. And I think that during this stretch, and really since Christie's taken over, we've seen them respond to that pretty well. So I think that should be telling you should definitely take care of business against Washington and Golden State. Specifically Washington, obviously. That's the type of game that you get flashbacks to last year and probably the year before also, or I guess not the original Beam team year, but last year where you're just losing games that you're losing for no reason. So need to take care of business in that one, and probably Golden State as well before you see what happens on that little road trip. But I would say, when it was Mike Brown breaking into 5-game increments, you want to go 3-2 in every single one of them. I think that maintaining that mindset is still good. You want to try to go 3-2 throughout this stretch.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I look at it. I see 5 games, and I see 3 of them at home, and they're against, I wouldn't say the Rockets are an easier opponent, but, you have some opportunities to win at home, and then you have 2 really tough road games where, if you can get one of them, I think it's considered a win, and that's just going to be a part of a really long road trip that you have coming ahead here. You have to, it's as simple as what it's been before they went on that losing streak and then went on the winning streak. Like, you have to beat teams that you should beat, and the teams that are a little bit tougher, the Rockets, the Nuggets, the Wolves of the world, you have to try and at least split those games. And at the end of the season, if you end up beating up on all the bad teams and, you go 500 against the good teams, you'll end up 5 to 10 games above 500. And so I think the Kings against the Rockets, they already kind of got theirs against the Rockets. I expect that to be a comeback game for Houston, and they'll probably have something for the Kings, but you have to beat the Wizards. That can't be if we know the Kings like I think we do, and Allen, you mentioned it earlier, that's probably going to end up being a close game. It's probably going to be way closer than it should be. You're going to sweat it out. You're going to have bad feelings about it coming into Monday, and then you're going to play the Warriors on Wednesday. That's going to be a super tight game where, again, you're at that point, if you lose to Houston and beat the Wizards, you're right back at 500 heading into that Warriors game, and that ultimately is going to decide what end of the fence you're going to end on heading into that Nuggets, Knicks, Nets, Sixers, Thunder, Wolves road trip. Like, that's those games leading into that road trip, you have to win at least 2 of them. And then again, when you're on the road, you have to beat Brooklyn. You probably have to beat Philly based off of how they've played this year. And then you're going to have to try and sneak one of Denver, Knicks, and Thunder, Wolves to try and, again, keep yourself in the battle. They were able to take advantage of a schedule that got pretty light and had some injury advantages, but this is the reality of the Western Conference is, hey, you might have gotten an easier stretch of games, but you're right back on that horse. And it's time for the Kings to really show which team are you? Are you the team that got your coach fired, or are you the team that has Doug Christie looking like a coach of the year? And I think we're going to get at least a temporary answer for this squad the next 7-8 games. And then, like you said, I mean, we have 10 games until the trade deadline. Once they come back from this road trip, I hope that there's some new players around.
Right.
Because I mean, that seems like the most Kings thing to do is make a trade while they're on the road, and we won't get our hands on the new look team until until early February.
Yeah, that's kind of insane.
I think that's the fun part of this, right? Is you don't know when the team's going to change from Sacramento's perspective. Like, you could play Jimmy Butler during these next 5 games. He could be on the Warriors.
Yeah, he play against Jimmy Butler.
He could be on the Kings.
Well,
I thought that's what you were saying.
Bobby Marks just put out a trade that had Jimmy coming to Sacramento, and the Sacramento, they weren't losing De'Aaron Fox. They were losing
Herter, Lyles, and DeRozan.
And we've talked about DeRozan being a kind of a cheaper version of Jimmy Butler, but y'all know I don't want Jimmy Butler. The one thing, Chris, that you pointed out with this Warriors Nuggets situation is that's a kind of tough back-to-back.
That is a back-to-back. I didn't even realize that's a
So
back-to-back.
you host the Warriors, then you get on the road
elevation
to the Nuggets.
I think you lose an hour too.
Yeah, so that is a game where the Warriors, the Rockets, I honestly don't know how to call it, but you have to be 2-1 heading to Denver. And the reason you have to be 2-1 at least going into Denver is not because Allen said so. It's because you're still digging yourself out of this dang hole. Because then you got to go. You're going to New York, then Brooklyn, and Brooklyn, they got you at home. So let's not act, when we don't know if Cam Johnson will still be on the team, whatever the case may be. Dennis Schroeder didn't even play. Dennis Schroeder nor Nick Claxton played against the Kings last time, and they still beat the Kings.
Who went off in that game?
I have
Wasn't
no
it like
clue.
Day'Ron Sharp or something?
No. I know
it wasn't
Noah
back
Brown.
big, though. Noah Clowney.
No, Noah Brown's on the
Noah Clowney.
Yeah.
Noah Brown caught the Hail Mary for Washington.
De'Ami Brown.
That's right. Noah Clowney hit like 4 threes.
Yeah, Noah Clowney went off for the Nets. So a lot of these games, guys, and there have been conversations about the Sixers maybe shutting down Joel Embiid. I don't know what they're doing there, but this is a really tough stretch. And I know we say this a lot in the media, but this legitimately could make or break the Kings season.
Yeah.
Because you're looking here and you're thinking the stretch that we just saw from the Kings, although none of us expected it, it did make a little bit of sense. The games that didn't make sense at the end was, I would say, the Warriors at the time didn't make a ton of sense, and the Celtics. But a 4-game winning streak, that did, you could understand it based on who they beat.
They were due.
The next time if they just try to go 500, which would leave them at 500 after they're done with the 10 game before the trade deadline, then you get a kind of a break.
Yeah.
Everybody will love this. you host or you go to the Trailblazers, and I don't want to assume anything there, the way they play the Trailblazers. Then for everyone who's still afraid of the Pelicans, you get the Pelicans 3 times.
Oh yeah.
And they might actually be healthy by that point. I don't know what Zion's doing, but this one's a fun one. February 10th, you host the Pelicans. February 8th. February 10th, you go to Dallas, and then you have a back-to-back in New Orleans. Pelicans, February 12th, February 13th. So I'm trying to find where the next stretch is going to be. If I'm going to sit here and say 10 games, just stay 500, where are we seeing this next stretch for the Kings? That's what I'm struggling with.
I mean, the Blazers and Pelicans, like you mentioned,
Okay.
those are supposed to be wins.
It doesn't stop there either. I mean, it's Blazers, Pelicans, Mavericks, Pelicans, Warriors, Hornets, Jazz.
The Wizards are coming up right now. We just mentioned Golden State too.
You got to stack these wins, guys.
You do, but like that, those are the games you're supposed to be winning.
Yep.
And I think that we need to keep that expectation for this team because they are that talented, and this run shows that it's there. It's there. It's just about putting it together and doing it possession after possession.
Oh no.
After possession.
Yeah.
How do you think, all right, just real quick before I let you guys get out of here, how do we think that was received because yesterday was the anniversary of the laptop.
Yeah.
Right.
Which
with
was
Mike
also
Brown.
in Milwaukee, by the way.
Exactly. And I think at that time, if I were a player, I would have thought, wow, coach is really riding for us. That after possession thing, as we see some of the cracks in the armor with what the locker room actually thought, do we think because we were all there, do we think the after possession thing, do we think that ticked the team off a little bit? Because I thought it was hilarious.
No, I don't think it ticked anyone
specifically.
off.
I think it was that week of press conferences, but I don't think it was that one. I think it was him calling out Sabonis for not boxing out Anthony Davis on that missed on that layup on the free throw on the Laker game, and then I think it was him calling out De'Aaron after allowing the 4-point play for them to notice. Both of those plays literally directly led to them losing. But I think that him acknowledging that they singularly lost the game, and that kind of lost the locker room.
We'll see what happens with Doug Christie. This is uncharted. Now, technically it's uncharted waters, but they did lose against the Lakers. But now, since the good vibes and the 7-game winning streak, we will see what happens there. Chris Watkins, Brendan Nunes, thank you so much for joining us, guys. We will talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Vikings talk next time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, Chris. We ran out of time. Sorry, man.
So did Sam. So did Sam Darnold.
So did Sam.
Just ran out of time.
Why didn't he run at least once? He could have ran at least once.
You're talking to the guy who has been saying for 20 weeks
But
now.
that's how you neutralize it. Just take off, Sam. He's an athletic cat.
Doesn't make sense.
We should have done this at the start.
Internal clock is just destroyed. It's
with the 9 sacks.
Blinking at 12.
Ended at
9. NFL playoff record. 9 sacks. Absolutely incredible.
And
14 wins.
But
second most wins in franchise history.
But normally, in those situations, everybody says, "What do you want him to do?" I think it was so bad.
Throw the football.
Yeah.
Like, I think that the one thing Kirk Cousins, I will give him a lot of credit for, he learned that at some point it's there's the meme of, oh, screw it, Jamar Chase got to be down there. At some point it is a screw it, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ, they're down there somewhere. And if you throw a 50-50 ball, they're going to come up with it 75% of the time, actually.
Wow. See, I still got
throw the ball.
We still got it in for you. JJ McCarthy era starting soon.
You laugh now. Just wait until Sam Darnold gets $100 million from the Raiders.
He's not making money.
He's not going to the Raiders.
All of his money.
Yeah, keep him away.
Generational bag phone.
Keep him away from Vegas unless he's playing roulette.
He's been embarrassed himself on national television.
Thank you, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Allen Stiles, Sacramento